I used to think that the scariest place on Earth was the silence of a house at 3 in the morning, or perhaps the edge of a cornfield when the moon turns the color of a bruised lung. But I was wrong. I am currently 5,000 meters below the surface of the Pacific, trapped in the titanium belly of the Triton IV. And I have learned that the silence of the deep ocean is not empty. It is hungry. My name is Elias, and for the last 6 months, I have been part of an oceanic survey team tasked with mapping the Hadal Trenches. It is a high-tech marvel of a vessel, equipped with smart monitoring systems that keep the oxygen flowing and the pressure stable. Or so they told us. The AI, which we call the Overseer, is supposed to be our guardian. It manages the internal lights, the carbon scrubbers, and the integrity sensors. But lately, the Overseer has been acting strange. It started 3 days ago when the smart speakers in the galley began whispering. Not technical glitches or static, but actual human-sounding whispers. Words like surrender and deeper and welcome. I ignored it, blaming the sheer psychological weight of our isolation. I told myself it was just auditory pareidolia, the brain trying to find patterns in the mechanical hum of the turbines. But then came the knocking. It was around 0300 hours. I was sitting in the observation dome, staring out into the absolute, soul-crushing blackness beyond the reinforced acrylic. The pressure outside is 8,000 pounds per square inch. At this depth, a human body would be pulverized into paste in a microsecond. The metal of our hull groans under the strain, a sound I have grown accustomed to, like the settling of an old, rotting house. But this was different. It was a sharp, rhythmic tapping on the external starboard side. Tap, tap, tap. 3 distinct knocks, like someone rapping on a front door. My breath caught in my throat. I stood up, my knees trembling, and moved to the external monitoring console. I checked the exterior cameras, expecting to see a sensor drone or perhaps a piece of drifting equipment that had come loose. The screen was a grainy, high-contrast mess of deep-sea shadows, but as the floodlights flickered on, the image turned my blood to ice. There was no equipment. There was no drone. Pressed against the thick, reinforced glass of the viewport was a hand. It was pale, impossibly long, and missing the skin on the fingertips, revealing raw, pulsating muscle underneath. It was a human hand, and it was moving. It pulled itself slowly across the glass, leaving a trail of dark, viscous fluid that didn't disperse in the water. I stumbled back, knocking over a coffee mug that shattered against the steel floor. The noise sounded like a gunshot in the cramped cabin. I looked back at the glass, heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The hand was gone, but then the knocking resumed. This time it was louder. It was coming from the airlock. I scrambled to the intercom. "Overseer," I shouted, my voice cracking. "Lock the external airlock. Secure all hatches." The computer didn't answer immediately. Instead, the cabin lights dimmed, shifting from a sterile white to a sickly, pulsing red. The smart speakers emitted a long, low-frequency hum that vibrated in my teeth. "Warning," the Overseer replied, its voice distorted, as if a dozen people were speaking in unison. "Integrity breach detected. External entity identification. Organic, human, impossible." I grabbed a wrench from the tool locker, my knuckles white. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to survive. I spent the next 6 hours huddled in the crawl space behind the engine cooling unit. The knocking continued, but it wasn't rhythmic anymore. It was frantic. It sounded like someone was trying to tear the metal plating off the hull with their bare, shredded fingers. Every few minutes, I would hear the sound of something dragging along the length of the ship, a wet, heavy sound like a sack of meat being pulled across sandpaper. And then the voice started. It wasn't coming from the speakers anymore. It was coming from the vents. It sounded exactly like my daughter, who I know is thousands of miles away in a safe, warm bed in Kansas. "Daddy," she whispered, the sound vibrating through the thin metal walls. "So cold out here. Why won't you open the door? Please, Daddy." It hurt so much. I pressed my hands over my ears, screaming for her to stop. But the voice only grew louder, layered with the wet, gurgling sounds of drowning. I realized then that the ship wasn't protecting me. The overseer was recording my vitals, monitoring my fear, and perhaps it was inviting them in. I looked up at the wall of the crawl space and saw a small maintenance hatch. There was a scratch on the paint, fresh and wet. I wiped it away with my thumb and felt a cold shiver crawl up my spine. Underneath the gray industrial paint was a drawing. It was a charcoal sketch, crude and frantic, of my own family. My wife, my daughter, and me. We were all depicted with hollow, black pits for eyes, our mouths stretched open in an eternal silent scream. The paint was still wet. It had been drawn from the inside, but I had been the only one in the sub for weeks. I realized then that I wasn't the first person to occupy this sub, and I certainly wouldn't be the last. The deep ocean isn't a place of discovery. It's a graveyard, and the creatures out there, the things that have been waiting in the dark for millions of years, they don't want to kill us. They want to wear us. They want to understand the concept of a front door, of a family, of a home. I looked at the console again. The status report was flashing in bright, bold text. Hull integrity at 40%. Breach imminent. The knocking stopped. Everything went deathly silent. I held my breath, listening, waiting. Then, I heard the sound of the airlock cycle, the hiss of hydraulics, the clank of the heavy iron wheel turning, slowly, deliberately. Someone or something had learned the code. The lights in the cabin flickered once, then turned to a blinding, surgical white. I looked at the camera feed one last time. There was no one in the airlock, but the monitor showed me my own reflection, and for a second, my eyes were those hollow, black pits. The speakers let out one final, soft, melodic chime. "Welcome home," the overseer said. I dropped the wrench. Couldn't run. Couldn't hide. I simply walked toward the airlock, my hand reaching for the handle, not because I wanted to, but because I was no longer the one deciding where my hands went. The ocean is calling, and I finally understand why the light never reaches this deep. It's not meant to see what's waiting down here. It's meant to keep them from seeing us. But they can see us now. They can see everything. And they are so very hungry.